Minute 10 Dream Theory. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard this before, probably all of you at this point, but could everything we've seen in these games actually be a dream? I mean, sure, Help Wanted gets kind of meta and in a way puts this theory to bed, but what if all of this are just things that we're seeing in a dream? Like, what if it's not the crying child in his home or in the hospital room waking up every morning? Like, what if it's William Afton dreaming about the insane things he plans on doing and maybe how well it will work out, or at least how well it would work out for him, because, you know, he's a lunatic. I mean, time works differently in dreams. You can go a whole month of your life and wake up and then realize it's only been 6 hours. And sure, you're able to control your dreams, but that's very difficult to do, because once you realize you're dreaming, for the most part at least, you wake up, or at least that's how it works for me. So what if currently, at least in like a timeline sense, he's only actually considering going on a killing spree, and this is his mind telling him either not to do it or to do it, because again, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Or there is another theory that we're still dreaming through crying child's eyes, or I guess his brain, but now he's just further into the dream trying to justify what he saw so that when he wakes up, hopefully, he isn't terrified. Or maybe he played the games that Scott made in universe and then had nightmares about them. Minute 9, The Cult of Afton. A theory I saw from Matt and I'm sure all of you as well, and Help Wanted's Curse of Dreadbarrow DLC. And kind of, I guess, what is the end of the DLC? You're tasked with collecting 4 keys from the corn maze while Grim Foxy chases you around. And if you find all 4, a 5th one will appear. A glitchy one that's kind of brown but also glitching with purple. If you manage to get it, it unlocks a cellar which looks like the barn, except it's not. It just has, it's the prize barn really. But this time, it's all torn up, as if it's been decaying for years, and then there's a bunny mask sitting on the table next to an unlit candle, and then probably like a circle of what is either blood or candle wax. I'm gonna go with blood because yeah. Then you put the mask on and your breathing slows down, you relax, and then the DLC, or I guess this mini game, is complete. Then when you head back to the prize counter, the mask is there again and you can put it on if you choose to, but if you do this while holding the glitch trap plushie you get from beating the main game, you start seemingly having a conversation with someone, but you can't really hear the other person, you just hear yourself. Which leads Matt to believe that there is a cult forming around worshipping Afton. And I mean, since Glitch Trap is Afton's preserved code form, I guess, maybe the fact that Vanny is still possessed, seemingly, according to the ruined DLC posters with, you know, her red eyes in the corner, maybe this theory has more merit to it than we originally thought. I mean, if Afton is able to possess both Burn Trap and Vanny, assuming Burn Trap is still intact, maybe while his sentience with his actual body is his alone, I don't know, maybe this code version is still able to multiply. Or maybe, like, this code isn't actually Afton, but is instead just a virus, and Vanny is actually a robot. Who f***ing knows? Minute 8, Psychopath. When it comes to Afton's reasoning for his, hobby, there are plenty of possible reasons, like his kids or his wife or I don't know, literally anything else. But there's also just the classic reason that there is no reason, and that William is just your typical run-of-the-mill sociopath who has no remorse for any of his actions. Now, the vengeful spirit referred to as the one you should not have killed seems to prevent this theory from being true, since if he had no remorse, nobody would really be considered someone he shouldn't have killed. But also, remember that they technically named themselves. Like, William didn't name them because the manifestations in his head are made by the vengeful spirit who wants him to suffer. So William might not have considered them, whoever it be, whether it be Cassidy or Crying Child, not someone that they actually shouldn't have killed, or even like, or had a hand in killing, okay? It's entirely plausible that William has no regrets for any of his actions, hence why he continued killing after he lost 2 out of his 3 kids to it. I mean, like, he even sent Michael down to see his sister possessing a robot who then also tries to kill him. So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that he doesn't care about losing people that he should be loving. He might have even only had kids to actually seem normal. Like those who are considered psychopaths, or more commonly sociopaths, try to fit in with the rest of society. He could have just had kids to accomplish that goal. Plus, I mean, maybe he even killed Charlotte before his kids died. And because, like, we know that he was planning on killing before his kids died, as proven by the fun times. So yeah, there has to be another explanation that isn't his kids. So maybe he's just actually nuts. Minute 7, Accident. Now, aside from me, maybe this whole deal was an accident, right? Maybe more so than just his kids getting killed by robots intended to kill. Maybe William's real first victim wasn't Charlotte. Maybe he did kill his wife, but accidentally. Maybe they were a bit too rough, or maybe she had a condition that made her susceptible to falling or something, and William accidentally tripped her. Maybe when that happened, in whatever way it did, William saw the life leave her eyes and liked it, but then wanted to see how it would look on a kid. So he set about making making robots that would help him see it. But his kids got instead. But then he still liked the sight of it so much that he continued. Maybe he wasn't built like it, but the sight of watching someone die, maybe even his wife or lover, awakened something deep within him that then propelled him to kill. It's nothing new, it's happened to plenty of people before, but William is dangerous. He knows how to cover his tracks. Despite the absolute buffoonery of his methods, the cops were none the wiser. Or maybe he was just paying them off. And at 6, Dave. Back in the glory days, before we knew who William Afton was, we had many names for the one we knew as the purple guy. None of them were canon, but some people believed they were canon, and some still do. And while they were all confirmed as fake once the official name of William Afton was revealed in the Silver Eyes as well as sister location, maybe one or more of them is actually real. I remember people calling Purple Guy Dave before the Silver Eyes came out, at least I think it was before the Silver Eyes came out. But once the Silver Eyes canonized Dave Miller as William's fake name, we've kept our eyes out for anyone using a similar alias. Well, lo and behold, it took a couple years, but in Security Breach you are able to find a duffel bag that contains messages that holds lore and stuff, okay? You find them all over the Pizzaplex. Like one about night terrors after being in the daycare service. But before that one, okay, in the customer service area where you upgrade your complimentary ticket, you can find a bag that says customer complaint. You should fire Dave. He sucks. It's simply called Hi Dave, but also suggests that perhaps maybe William still has an influence over this place, or I guess more so that he may have a couple of people possessed in the company, which explains a lot. Or, you know, there may actually be a cult. You should join mine. Halfway through into number 5, Ultimate Custom Night. I think we all know where William Afton he deserves to go, okay? One-way trip downstairs, or as Henry said, although for one of you, the darkest pit in hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend. I'm still waiting, Afton. And you know what? We thought we had gotten rid of him. We thought that William was in hell for Ultimate Custom Night. However, this proves to not be the case when the Man Room 1280 was released, showing us that instead William had only been in a coma like his son years before. However, this time winning was him waking up instead of dying, only dying when he explodes in the Fazbear warehouse and creates Glitch Trap, but apparently this is no longer what happened. Because did William really possess a hard drive and become sentient code, or is there something more going on here? While yes, weird things in the series can be explained away with it's FNAF, or like a dream theory of something, but like, no, I'm not doing that, okay? That's the coward's way out, and I'm not a coward for the most part. Although I don't want to play horror games. But like, just look. If Afton is in Burn Trap, he shouldn't be able to be Glitch Trap. Ultimate Custom Night is just Burn Trap being in the pod. It's what he's seeing when he's in the pod. So everything we thought we knew about Ultimate Custom Night doesn't count anymore. And that's hella annoying because, you know what? We thought we had something. We thought that we had finally figured out one thing about this series. Then you know what Scott says? Up yours. And at 4, limb transplant. William Afton is a tricky fiend. He somehow, no matter what, always seems to get his way with whatever scheme he's cracked up just because he's that lucky. Or just that kind of person. I don't know, maybe he has an infinity gauntlet or something. I don't f***ing know. But if he does, it would explain a lot, since in every game after the introduction of Springtrap where we see William Afton, he has a new design. And it's not a design that could easily be explained by just like the suit decaying or being torn. No, Springtrap to Scrap Trap, like what? His head seemingly doubles in size. And then Scrap Trap to Burn Trap, it went back to normal, okay? Like what? The whole time, however, it also remained to be William Afton as proven in Ultimate Custom Night. So like, what's the deal here, Scott? How did this happen? The best explanation that we have currently is artistic license. Like Scott just ran with the idea that he thought he was gonna make Springtrap scarier since a load of people were upset originally when Springtrap came out and he didn't want that repeating itself. But then in the process, he also confused the hell out of us. So then maybe in Security Breach, he went back to something closer to the original design and then just like swapped missing limbs out for Glamrock animatronic parts because, you know, continuity or something. Although FNAF doesn't really care about continuity. But again, the whole artistic license thing also explains the other design discrepancies, specifically Scrap Trap, because that's just that is shameful. But ultimately, and at number 2, Vengeful Child. Okay, I know it's a controversial idea, but every time I bring this up, someone gets mad at me, so I'm gonna say it again until you all just accept that it's true. Crying Child is the vengeful spirit, okay? I don't know, it makes more sense. Cassidy, other than being Golden Freddy, has literally no lore significance, so if they're not, So yeah, okay? Look, you can't be Golden Freddy and possessing William. You get one thing, okay? You get to possess one thing. That has been the case for everyone except William Afton, because one of the things that is possessing something else is a code. It's sentient code. Cassidy has no code, okay? They're just a kid. If they possess Golden Freddy, they cannot possess William, okay? So Crying Child's in William because he dies in the hospital, and then Cassidy was in Golden Freddy and was released at the end of FNAF 3. Crying Child wasn't introduced until FNAF 4, okay? There you go. Deal with it. I don't care if you're mad. Deal with it. It's true. Okay? You can yell at me in my DMs after you follow me first, because I need the views. And finally, in at number 1, Remnant Lies. Okay, this is a long video. I know, okay? Just bear with me. Currently, what we know about Remnant and Agony tells us that to destroy it properly, we need to burn it. Hence why there's been so many fires in the series. FNAF 3, FNAF 6, and Security Breach all end with something or someone getting burnt. FNAF 3's fire was all about dealing with Springtrap. FNAF 6 was about putting everyone who knew about the atrocities that occurred at Freddy's to rest. And then in FNAF 9, we burn Trap multiple times to get him to stop possessing Freddy, so he's just even more burn trap, I guess. But this is all because Henry learned that the only way to destroy Remnant was it was fire. That's the only way to put these beings to rest. But is that really how we deal with these animatronics and Remnant infused people? Because while 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest Pro Health toothpaste, 3 out of 3 FNAF fires haven't worked, okay? We've been told that fire is the only thing hot enough to burn off the Remnant, but Remnant has also been described as liquid metal. Liquid metal is a hell of a lot hotter than your typical run-of-the-mill gasoline fire, okay? So it doesn't burn away if it can melt. That's not how science works, okay? I have extensive knowledge on fires, okay? Trust me. In essence, every single animatronic that was supposed to be set free by a cleansing fire hasn't. The only time we've seen souls actually be put to rest is in FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, which involved no fire and just putting souls to rest because you gave them what they want. Which leads me to believe that we were given false information. Dr. Talbert wouldn't really lie to us, right? I mean, he's researching to see so his little girl can, he can see her again, right? Well, this is where the theory blows your mind, okay? I know it's long-winded, but I don't think Dr. Talbert is a real person. Or rather, I don't think that Dr. Talbert is truly his full name, or I guess his real name. Let's think about it, alright? Who else do we know with an endless flow of Remnant from an undisclosed source and a close personal friend that's working as his opposite? Yeah, that's right, William Afton, who made up the Remnant needs to burn line so that he couldn't be killed when Henry tried. In a 10 Nightmare Arm. The arm at the end of the initial Security Breach teaser drove the internet mad for like a week before we ultimately just said we'll wait for the next trailer. And with the most recent, which was the last trailer before the game's release, we still had nothing about that arm. And I guess I can understand why, but it was still frustrating. So you can guess that when someone tagged me on Twitter at Centimeter Monroe and showed me a picture comparing the Security Breach arm to the arm of Nightmare Freddy, I'd be intrigued. So intrigued, in fact, that I actually got angry because if it's ever intended on being a Nightmare Freddy arm, I'm leaving, okay? These animatronics are perfectly content being illusions, okay? Or in a child's imagination running wild while his body is trying to save his life. But still, what the hell? How do these versions of Afton in an animatronic keep changing? They all have his body in it, so they must be intentionally the same endo. But then it keeps changing designs still. In a 9 Stitch Wraith. Seeing the Stitch Wraith was very unlikely, but I would have certainly enjoyed an appearance of the character, even if it was in a nightmare sequence like I had suggested in other videos, or maybe it was a brief passerby. I mean, it's not impossible, but I do think that that one wasn't likely to happen. Even in a future DLC, I don't think it would happen. But it would certainly be interesting to be looking out a window or something in the Pizzaplex, although there's not really any windows, but it would still be interesting to see him out of the corner of our eye. However, we did used to believe that the Afton arm was in fact the Stitch Wraith, and some fans believe that Burn Trap will actually turn into the game universe's version of the Stitch Wraith, which wouldn't rely on Phineas tag art and would probably work better for the story of the games, but I don't know. Based on everything we've seen, I don't think that William will be losing his face anytime soon. But what do you think? Do you think that William, or I guess Burn Trap, will end up being the Stitch Wraith of the FNAF game universe, or do you think that we'll never see the Stitch Wraith in the games? Be sure to let me know down below. In at 8, Not Afton. Some thoroughly believe that this animatronic, this new version of the Spring Bonnie animatronic, to not be William, and instead possibly be Henry Emily, William's business partner and father of his first victim. Why do they think this? No idea. However, I can kind of see why. But simply, it's just due to inconsistencies. Since seemingly the endo for this version of Springtrap also has the same endo as the Glamrock animatronics, or the ones that we see in what is honestly the scariest part of the game. Those are the only real endos that we see. Since if this was Afton, the endo should be the first version of the endoskeleton. My explanation for this is simply because they had this model for the endo in the files and they were rushing to release something after already delaying the game multiple times, so they used it and added the Springtrap bits onto it. And since he's so destroyed, it's really difficult to determine whether it's the same design as Scraptrap, and since Henry was also in the FNAF 6 location, it could be him technically, or at least he was around the location, but I still doubt it. And at 7, Gregory is 40, or a robot. To be totally honest, the knowledge that this kid Gregory has exceeds even some of my own, okay? This kid is the size of a 4-year-old. He can fit inside Freddy, inside baby strollers, and various other small areas and objects around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, and start and drive a car, as well as identify a car battery, connect the jumper cables on that car battery properly, and then use those to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. He's also the one that comes up with the idea, because Freddy says that it's just not possible. Yeah, I don't even know how to do that properly. Like, how the living hell does this make any form of sense? And how do they try and solve that issue in the true ending, okay? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, and they don't have the van this time around. So how do Freddy and Gregory make it to the hill without Freddy needing to recharge? Or like, how do they solve the issue in this scenario, okay? This kid, either way, knows more than I do, but somehow is still the size of a 4-year-old, maybe even younger. Because like, the size of a 4-year-old is actually slightly bigger than what Gregory's size would be based on the opening and Freddy's torso and Freddy's height. And a lot of math that we did in our other video, okay? I'll try to remember to link it in one of the corners. It makes no sense, okay? This kid has like a weird superpower that makes this game incredibly confusing and nearly impossible. It only really makes sense if he's a robot that was supposed to mimic a toddler who's been on for decades and learning this whole time. Or he's just secretly 40 somehow. I don't know. And at 6, AI. It is unknown how Glitchtrap was able to leave his body for the events of FNAF VR, or how he re-enters it for the events of Security Breach. Based on everything we know about the series, it should be impossible for Glitchtrap to exist if Afton is still inside Burntrap, especially if the one you should not have killed is keeping him alive still, since that would prevent Afton from escaping from his body. And despite a line of dialogue in the trailer clearly coming from some sort of William Afton, Burntrap never speaks throughout his entire encounter, which only makes this more confusing, since if he talked, we would know that he isn't an AI, but he doesn't talk, so we can't be sure if he is or not, since not talking doesn't exactly mean that he's an AI, since people can also choose not to talk. And the AIs in this game also talk, so at this point, we have no idea if he is or isn't an AI, which is really annoying. Although, I still believe that the one you should not have killed is Gregory, not Cassidy, but you know, well, MatPat doesn't want to talk about it. He won't respond to my Twitter, okay? Or my Instagram. Or literally anything at this point. MatPat, please. Let's talk about this. Halfway through in at number 5, meta theory. Now, honestly, this isn't possible. Not even in the slightest. Unless Scott had some seriously messed up story in mind. But my meta theory is just because I want a chance to yell in this video. And to be frank, this would be my serial killer origin if I was Afton, okay? What if somehow, some way, William ended up seeing the FNAF Rule 34 art that's online? Specifically about his various forms, particularly Springtrap. I mean, that would be pretty blasphemous if I'm honest. And time travel does exist in the FNAF universe thanks to Into the Pit, so in theory Afton could have gone to the future and seen the absurd Springtrap fan art and then gone back and had been so flabbergasted and traumatized from seeing himself lubing up Troll Tower that he went nuts and started killing the people responsible for his horrific perversion of his life. Whether it be specific people that did that or just the demographic that would grow up to then do that, okay? It could have just been the ships as well, like seeing himself shipped with the likes of animatronics that his kids end up possessing would certainly cause me to lash out. So yeah, not possible in the slightest, but funny as hell to think about, and frankly, understandable. And at 4, survivors. It seems like everyone we see in the true ending to Security Breach, including Burntrap, are survivors of the FNAF 6 fire, which means that this would indeed be Scraptrap or Springtrap, but as to how he changed again, I have no idea. How do we know that this is everyone from FNAF 6 and not just William? Well, the Blob, which is a massive sized proportion of wire tentacles, because of course it is, and animatronic parts with possession of many glowing eyes. It has a whole load of them, okay? It has a mask that is identical to that of Funtime Freddy with black eyes, pinkish red glowing pupils, and like the endo face that reveals to have face plates rather than tubes, which is already a whole other can of worms that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. The blob's body is a large mass of wire like tentacles, and like it's basically what the sister location endos were made out of. However, it also appears to be a larger version of Molten Freddy from the Pizza Simulator Fire. Okay, but it's far bigger, and it has parts of other animatronics like Circus Baby, the puppet, Chica for some reason, Mangle, Bonnie, and several Endo Mark IIs. And you know what? There's probably others, which again is a whole other can of worms that I don't want to touch. Getting close to the end, into number 3, False Conviction. On this channel's previous full FNAF timeline video, which in my opinion is underrated, Shauna has commented, quote, "Quick little theory. You know how in the first game it says the killer was convicted for the murders of the missing children? If that's the case, I think Henry was falsely convicted. But since they couldn't find the bodies, he got 25 to 30 years and got out of prison when Fazbear Frights opened. It explains to me why he hasn't been involved in the first few games, and I will say I've heard a lot of different information concerning the missing children's incident, so my theory could be wrong, just wanted to put it out there." And then they gave me permission to use this in a video, so yeah. Honestly though, Henry being falsely imprisoned for the missing children's incident does kind of explain a lot, even if he wasn't like actually sent to prison, because again they didn't have any forensic evidence because they couldn't find the bodies. Even him just like being accused would make sense. Yeah, I don't think that he would have been convicted because the case would rely specifically on circumstantial evidence, which is really difficult to do, especially if you're having like an actual proper trial. But when it's the death of multiple kids, they definitely would want to actually explore the avenue, so the case could have been dragged on for a while, until 1993 when the first FNAF game location closed with William inside of it, and then 30 years passed for them to open up Fazbear's Fright, which from what I've seen on the wiki is an amusement park, but I don't know if that's the case. Either way, 30 years is a lot of time for new evidence to come to light, okay? And maybe Henry even got out earlier than that if he actually was sent to prison. But he didn't act until William was free, because again, why would he need to until he was free? Well, the whole he was convicted thing could be explained away by Scott not thinking that there would be another game, let alone 8 others, or 9 I guess at this point. He wanted the story of the killer explained, so it could make sense. But now, this could be a great way to retcon that explains why nothing happened until FNAF 3. So there you go, Scott. You can thank Shauna for that one. Great work. Penultimately, in at number 2, Finally Dead. The true ending is seemingly one of the scariest parts of the game because it contains a load of things, okay? After making your way into Burntrap's area, Freddy will be taken over by Afton's newest form, and it's up to Gregory to defeat him by pressing 3 buttons outside of 3 monitors to burn Burntrap. Players will also need to avoid the animatronic enemies that come for Gregory and then use the doors to temporarily lock them out, and then other things. When Burntrap is finally burned, the blob, which was that tentacle monster thing that I was talking about, attacks him to make sure that he doesn't get away. Freddy and Gregory will then be shown escaping and sitting on a hill together. However, if the blob actually does kill William is a totally different question. There are death animations in the game files, however they aren't used in the ending, so we can't count it as canon. Plus, the whole I always come back thing should have ended with this game from what we understood about the series, but he came back nonetheless, so even logical conclusions aren't going to help us. And if the blob was going to ensure William's death, it would then have to ensure its own death, so I doubt that it did it. God, just please let William finally be dead for the love of everything in life. Please. And finally, in at number 1, Comes Back. I think that unfortunately Afton being resurrected or returning in some form or another is inevitable. I don't get why, okay? I think at this point we can move on from this killer. We have a new one, but a load of people seem to think that we need Afton back again. I put a poll up on like the Vanny facts lists that we know during the premiere. And even though the video is about Vanny, only 51% of people thought that she was better than Glitchtrap. And I think that speaks volumes as to who the favorite in this series is. Like, I get that we've grown up with Afton as the killer, okay, but hell, we didn't even know his name until Sister Location. Until that point, we were calling him after a frickin' color, okay? We've known this man's name for like 5 games. That's literally half the series. That's half the time the series has been out. The first 4 games didn't have him. okay? He was just like, he wasn't even a character in the first game. Just a mysterious man that MatPat compared to Nathan Dunlap, okay? Just end him. Finally, please! And at 10, losing kids. This seems to be the most popular theory about why William Afton started his whole killing spree thing, because seemingly he didn't kill anyone until after Elizabeth and Crying Child died at the hands of the various animatronics. But there are those who also treat this as a proven fact. But honestly, this is proven to not be the case, okay? It is impossible for William to be a psychotic killer because his kids died. As we learned from FNAF AR's Fast Facts, William made the Funtime animatronics around the same time as the Springlock animatronics. So, from day one, he made the robots that were intended to kill. Plus, if you want to ignore FNAF AR's Fast Facts entirely, the fact that Elizabeth and Crying Child got killed by animatronics that were designed to kill, hence why they were killed by them, even disproves that idea before FNAF AR. So, while it would make sense, it's not truly the case. And some of these other explanations may end up making more sense. Although, to be frank, I don't think that anyone actually knows the real origin, not even Scott Cawthon. And at 9, divorce. Another popular reason is possibly because William's wife left him, and that drove him crazy. I mean, being a single dad to 3 kids would already be pretty tough, but maybe this idea goes beyond this. A lot of people also assume that William killed his wife, considering how she's not around, and nobody really ever mentions her. This honestly could be an option, but only because we know so little about the home life that William had before the games, or even before 1983 when we see the sister location 8-bit scenes. So theories about this are entirely plausible, even if they just rely on human nature rather than evidence present within the games. I mean, these are human characters after all. They don't have as much meat to them as the theories involving info from the games or even from the books, but it's still interesting to see the possibilities like this. And like, did William get divorced? Was his wife his first victim? Who knows? Probably not even Scott. Honestly, I doubt William's motivation is something that like he thought of when he was throwing out the last game, when he thought that the game would end up failing. Yet here we are, 9 games and like 8 years later, almost. And it ain't Phone Guy. Hold on, okay, hold on. Hear me out. I think that there is still the possibility, slight chance that despite what Scott might have said, that the Phone Guy could still be the killer. Now, this is probably almost definitely not the case. This is a list about speculating, right? Well, what if William is indeed the one recording these training tapes, and what we hear is what we see play out in FNAF 3's minigames? I mean, we thought that this was possible before, but then when they gave him a name, we figured that they were different people. But maybe they also gave us Phone Guy's name without us knowing it. I mean, what other reason would he have to be an Ultimate Custom Night? Unless the vengeful spirit heard the recordings and knew what Phone Guy sounded like? Plus, the animatronics bashing on the door could just be when William goes to disassemble them, which accidentally releases their spirits. But the tape's cut off before he ends up getting spring locked. Because, like, I don't know about you, but if I saw the ghosts of my victims, I wouldn't think like, oh, I need to vlog this. We have 2 different versions of Afton in Ultimate Custom Night already, so maybe there is a secret 3rd version, aside from the one we play as at least. And at 7, Bonnie. This is an interesting theory from Reddit user u/wasThatTheBite of 87 on the Game Theorist subreddit a month ago, which actually MatPat just talked about in his last Game Theory on Sunday. The post didn't get much love, but it's certainly interesting. Was that the bite of _87 asks if the burn trap animatronic is using the disassembled Bonnie. Quote from the Reddit post. So, I have a theory that Burn Trap is using the disassembled Bonnie robot. Let me explain. So you know how Burn Trap has an intact animatronic foot even though no other Spring Trap or Scrap Trap never had them? Management might have disassembled Bonnie, and there could have been a body of Glitch Trap infected person in there, which explains the dead rotting corpse, and Afton could have taken over, but is weak, which explains why he needs a recharge station. That is all I have for now. It's kind of rough, but considering how Afton's body is still in that robot, which wouldn't be necessary if his consciousness is only in Glitch Trap or if it was transferred into this endo, I don't think that this is actually like the canon. Like I think that if Afton's body wasn't in the robot, you'd be onto something, and like MatPat would also be onto something because he also agrees that this should be Glamrock Bonnie's endo. But his body being in there has to be Scrap Trap, but like heavily burnt. Like sure, he has another arm, but they could have just added an arm onto him. But like the main body of it would have to be Scrap Trap, unless we have like a really messed up scenario going on, which is possible, but it's a kid's game. So, I don't know. I mean, like, would Vanny take Afton's rotting corpse and put it in a new endo? I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I think that they just replaced the arms and the legs so that he could stand, because he didn't have his actual human feet anymore. That's just what I think. In at 6, demon deal. This may be because my brain is watching too much Supernatural, but the possibility does exist that in a world with possession, living corpses, sentient biological code that can possess animatronics and people, and where spirits can possess people to keep them alive to suffer, that there is in fact also a hell and demons. And if there are demons, maybe this is why William is absolutely god insane. Maybe he sold his soul to a demon so that his business would be successful. However, so that the Reaper wouldn't come to collect, William decided to start making sacrifices. Or maybe it was demanded of him as part of his deal or something. Maybe the demon he sold his soul to wanted a little snack every once in a while, you know, some baby back ribs. Or maybe, due to this deal, he seeked out getting possessed by a vengeful spirit so that he wouldn't actually be able to be sent to hell. Or maybe that was only a theory, but he was willing to try anything in order to keep himself from eternal damnation. Just an idea. I mean, it's definitely unlikely, probably like 99% not the case, but it's still interesting. Halfway through into number 5, bribery. The fact that William wasn't caught or that everything seems to go perfectly for him has to have an explanation. Okay, there's no way that this guy just got that lucky. No way. Not in FNAF. There has to be a reason behind why the cops didn't check behind the bleeding and horribly smelling animatronics, okay? We know that this is the case because of the newspapers from FNAF 1. They confirmed that the restaurants shut down thanks to animatronics smelling like death and leaking mucus and blood. Here's a quote from one of those clippings. Police were contacted when parents reportedly noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots. One parent likened them to reanimated carcasses. How were the bodies not found then? Okay, they could literally just have tested the blood, found that it was similar to the parents of the kids that went missing if they didn't have the kids' DNA on file, which would be understandable, and then easily have gotten a warrant to take the animatronics. But they didn't, and the bodies were never found, and Afton got released. How the living hell is that possible? The only way that I can see it being possible is bribery. William had to be bribing these people. It's impossible otherwise, okay? Unless they're just stupid, which is plausible, but like, that's like police fundamentals, okay? If there is what appears to be blood at somewhere that is a crime scene or a suspected crime scene, you test it. Come on. At least if it's fake, you'll know. And at 4, sacrifice. Maybe this isn't about fan art or a demon deal at all. Maybe Afton is just a religious man who worships the old gods, more specifically, the dark ones, and believes, like some ancient cultures, that sacrifice is the key to a peaceful and long life. I mean, in the end, if this is the case, he wasn't wrong. His misdeeds end up getting him possessed, which allows him to live for much longer than he should have without food or water, after being spring-locked for 30 years, and through multiple fires. I mean, if this is his motivation, this would absolutely make sense to him and actually to him be proven true. Like, maybe he doesn't know that his body is being possessed, at least until Ultimate Custom Night when the vengeful spirit reveals himself. Maybe until that point he genuinely thought that he was being kept alive by the gods. Hell, maybe even after the one you should not have killed reveals himself, he's still thinking that it's one of the gods instead of one of his victims. Crazy people believe crazy things, right? So who knows? Maybe Afton just thinks he's doing the Dark Lord's bidding in exchange for eternal life. Or maybe an end to his suffering after losing his wife, or something like that, okay? There are many explanations, although I doubt that this one is very likely. I still like talking about it. It's fun to explore. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, wanted, dead or alive. Forget it. Because, yeah, you know what? This is actually a good question in this case, since I don't know if Afton is alive or dead inside of the burn trap suit, okay? He was alive in the spring trap and scrap trap suits, as we learned from the man in room 1280, because he was possessed by the one you should not have killed. But did he finally get put down after FNAF 6, or is he still kicking? Okay, his body is still present within the burn trap suit, or at least it partially is. His skull is still there. So, what's the consensus here? I don't know. The existence of Glitch Trap seems to imply that he's dead in the suit, but Ultimate Custom Night suggests that the one you should not have killed is still possessing him, which would be what he sees in the recharge station, which would mean that he's alive, and not because of the recharge station, but because the one you should not have killed would still be possessing him, which they would only do if he was still alive, since if we're being honest, the only reason that Afton was possessed was so that he could suffer, so being possessed after he's dead isn't really gonna do anything for Crying Child, because that crying child is definitely the one you should not have killed. Not Cassidy, I'm saying it, okay? It's a thing. And the one you should not have killed would not be controlling Burn Trap to take over Freddy and turn things evil. It just goes against what we know about the character. So, I don't know at this point. I feel like he's probably still alive, but like just barely. Although, that means that glitch trap shouldn't exist. But ultimately, in number 2, time loop. Could Afton be stuck in a Groundhog Day-like scenario? Instead of a day, it's however many years. I mean, this one is absolutely wild and 100% guaranteed not to be the case. But ever since time travel was introduced into the series, it's a whole other thing now. Literally, the first Fazbear Frights book had to do us like that. Anyway, what if William actually started living his life on repeat? The same thing over and over. That would drive anyone crazy. I mean, like, just look at what happened to Bill Murray. But if we ended up thinking about it, if William didn't think that there were consequences and then he went berserk, maybe he started offing people because he could, but then the cycle broke. It's absolutely ridiculous, and again, 100% not the case, but it's pretty interesting to consider. I mean, the time-traveling ball pit had the golden Bonnie and was introduced for a reason, right? Maybe it's to show that Afton is all about time travel or something along those lines. Again, no way this is real, so don't yell at me in the comments. It's a stupid idea, but it's fun to think about nonetheless. In a 10, save him. Now, there is a very clear connection between the ruin poster and the save them minigame from FNAF 2. The text on the screen, at least to me, indicates that what we will have to do is save Gregory from whatever situation that he's in with Freddy. Since we know that eventually he does make it to that hill that he sits on in the true ending, in the Princess Quest ending. However, it could be possible that that scene in this case is just a dream, since it's more realistic than the other endings. That could also just be because it's the true ending and it's canon, but it's currently unclear. Obviously, if it's real, we will end up being successful, but it's possible that our character, whoever she is, will die in the process. I could also be drawing weird connections between things that aren't really linked, but that's always possible when theory crafting, at literally any point, so. In at 9, Robot Gregory. This poster, in my eyes, also helps prove further that Gregory is in fact a robot, since after all we get confirmation that Vanny messes up the cameras, as you can see from the 2 screens that have Vanny on them. They're both glitching out. This is further supported by our last point, because how would Gregory be able to add a help me sign to a screen without being able to access the cameras? Nowhere on our Fazwatch does it say that we can add text, and Freddy clearly doesn't have the ability, since he would have used it during the section where we have to open the doors for him so that we can then be a sussy baka and vent, instead of just, you know, standing there and waving. He could have had text flashing up on screen so that we can see him easily. Multiple people I watched play this had difficulty with this section, okay? Freddy just flashing some text on screen saying I'm here, especially when the player takes a while, would have established that he had this power, but they didn't. So unless they want to somehow retcon that in, it has to be that Gregory's controlling it. Most likely because he's a robot and he can just, like, tap into the cameras. And at 8, no more Freddy. There is also a possibility that Freddy is destroyed, or that he won't be in this DLC at all thanks to the statue we see on the poster. This poster could be an indication of what happened to Freddy after the Pizza Plexus collapse. I mean, after all, the collapse did destroy Chica, right? So why couldn't it have destroyed Freddy too? Yes, he ends up on the hill with Gregory, but like I said, that could be a dream or a heaven of sorts, or it could be years after the actual ending of the game. We can't really be certain. Or at the very least, the game could be omitting Freddy and he won't make an appearance for whatever reason, hence why the statue is destroyed. I mean, like, look at it. This thing is in pieces, but why? There isn't much rubble around it, and the escalator walls are way less damaged than this, so why would the statue have been so heavily damaged if there was nothing that actually hit it? Seems a bit sus if you ask me. And at 6, Chica Graffiti. While zooming in on Chica, like I always do, I did notice that her torso seems to have traces of red on it. Now, what this is in reality is definitely unclear, but it could be graffiti, indicating that this could be later on in the timeline. She could have been decommissioned for a while after being revived for whatever purpose, and maybe some kids got to her and decided to spray paint her. Or, more likely, it's actually pizza sauce. See, brightening the image while basic FNAF at this point is also still helpful, and I used it in the last Ruins video. However, while the red is evident on the normal poster, by brightening you can actually see that there is yellow dripping from Chica's face. And unless Chica started listening to Bear Grylls in order to survive the collapse of the Pizzaplex, I'm pretty sure that it's melted cheese dripping from her mouth, which would also explain the red in tandem. I mean, it could be her beak, but like, we're trying to explain the red, so cheese makes sense. Like I said, it would mean that the red stuff would then be pizza sauce and potentially pepperoni or some other form of meat that the Pizzaplex kitchen would add on pizza. But it could also be blood. Not sure from who, but maybe Chica saved Vanny's life or something. Also, I was at Niagara Comic-Con 2 days ago, and there was a girl dressed as Chica. Didn't know who I was. It was kind of offensive. It was really humbling. Halfway through into number 5, the Blob. The Blob is the amalgam giant pile of black goo that is only seen in the canon ending to Security Breach. The Blob is a massive sized proportion of wire, tentacle, and animatronic parts with possession of many glowing red eyes, because of course it does. The Blob's main head has a mask identical to that of Funtime Freddy, but with black eyes and pinkish red glowing pupils. And then its endo face reveals to actually have metal plates rather than wire tubes. Their body is a large black mass made of wire tentacles like things. I don't know. It looks like goo, but it's also not goo. It appears to be some larger version of Molten Freddy after Pizzeria Simulator's fire, but it's far more grotesque and mixed with parts of other animatronics and endoskeletons, even some that seemingly weren't at the pizzeria. You can see parts of older animatronics like Circus Baby and the Puppet, which were in FNAF 6's location, but also Chica, Mangle, Bonnie, and several Endo 2s, and likely others that we can't actually see. However, one detail pointed out to me, at least by Matt Patton in his latest theory, was that Baby's eyes aren't glowing red, suggesting that perhaps Baby's soul isn't in this giant amalgamation, and instead it's being controlled by Funtime Freddy, similar to how the book's tentacle monster was Baby, but this time it would be Freddy in the game world. In it for simulation. It's also worth mentioning that there are multiple instances on the poster that feel unfinished. Now, I don't know if this was because the poster was rushed, which has seemingly been a trend with FNAF recently, or because they're simply mistakes, but I wanted to point out in case it has bigger implications. Like when I mentioned the last time we talked about this, the floor at the bottom actually cuts off, but the rocks on top of the floor don't. Mostly because at this point the ground without brightening had mostly faded into black, but the rock was still kind of visible. However, even unbrightened, you can see the clear divide between the tile and just pure black. You can also see that on the left, the floor does the same. And this is very clear in the original poster, okay? I mean, like, there's even a glowing rock sitting at the border. Oh, it's like glowing because it has reflecting light on it, but it also kind of reminds me of when an item is important, so it's highlighted in the game even if it makes it unrealistic. But the most interesting part in my eyes is the tree on the far right. The one in the back next to the escalator. The bottom 2 sections of it are blank, like they're just filled in with a black outline and then solid brown color. Like the artist had finished the color blocking and then forgot to finish the tree despite doing the rest of that tree. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but if it is, then could this be pointing to the entire thing being a simulation? Which would then bring up the question of how and who. Like maybe this is what Vanny is seeing in her head while Glitch Trap was taken over, so that she's still like the good guy in her head, so she's not fighting back against Glitch Trap's control. Or maybe it's Gregory still caught in his dream that started in 1983. Getting close to the end into number 3, Glam Rock Freddy is Henry. Now the idea that Freddy is possessed is a theory that's been floating around for a while, and some assume that the one possessing him is Michael, which does make sense. However, there are also hints that this isn't the case at all, and that it's instead Henry possessing Freddy. Do I think that this is the case? No, but it's still fun to talk about. Starting off with the fire he sets on the rooftop ending if you leave through the prize counter. This ending has Freddy set the prize counter on fire as you two escape to the roof. Now, we know that out of the 3 fires in this series, Henry was the one who set the first 2. He was the one who set the FNAF 6 pizzeria on fire, and the FNAF 3 fire was also most likely set by Henry. Since in Ultimate Custom Night, Orville Elephant claims, quote, "He tried to release you, he tried to release us," in which us is most likely a reference to the FNAF 3 fire, since this is the one where he tried to release the one you should not have killed, and the one you should not have killed is talking through Orville. So Freddy's first idea to set fire to this place may not be a coincidence. He also seems extremely eager to do so. There's also the idea that Henry was in the FNAF 6 pizzeria when it burned down, since he said that he was nearby. I don't know, it could be possible, and if it was, what a twist. But ultimately, in at number 2, Elizabeth Afton. Okay, this one is a bit wild, but hear me out. I also mentioned last time how both of these kids look like Aftons. Gregory is very clearly meant to at least be an allegory for Crying Child, okay? The stripes on the shirt, the age, the relationship with Freddy, it was right there in our faces. Whether you believe he is a robot or not, he is at least meant to represent Crying Child. And now, look at this girl. While she may be in black and white, she is still very clearly blonde. She has pigtails like Baby does, and we all know who Elizabeth ends up possessing. She's wearing a skirt exactly like Elizabeth was wearing in the one time we see her in Sister Location. I mean, if Crying Child's 2 stripes are enough for a comparison, I think this is more than enough. And then, look at her shoes. The lights are the only thing that has color on on them, which is very clearly meant to have our attention. And then those lights are purple and red. Purple very clearly representing William Afton, and while last time I said that the red could be Vanny, Baby is absolutely covered in red, from the clothes to her hair. Red is all over that animatronic. Or it could be that this girl is evil, just like how Elizabeth always wants to impress her father. Just saying. It's not the craziest thing this series would have done. Okay, it would have been, okay, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Or again, they could have just been taken because they look like the kids. And finally, in at number 1, time travel. This one is crazy, I will admit, and it's most definitely not the case, but FNAF has already established time travel as possible in the very first Fazbear Frights book called Into the Pit. Remember that one? Where Oswald ends up jumping into a ball pit and somehow leaving 2011 and appearing in 1985 to witness the missing children's incident? Yeah, that story wasn't written for no reason. And where do we see the first ball pit that wasn't in a pizzeria that was simply meant to lure animatronics around? Oh, would you look at that? The Mega Pizzaplex. I'm just saying that time travel has already been established, and considering how sketchy Gregory is, I wouldn't put it past him from being from the future or something. There are actually 2 key indicators that point in this direction, at least in my mind. The therapy disc, where the therapist calls client 46 out on the lies about their home life, and the fact that when he leaves the Pizzaplex in the worst ending, he sleeps in a cardboard box. The therapist in the tape says that 46, which I'm still certain is Gregory, has a great home life, but what they told their previous therapist was a lie. But if that is the case and his home life is great, despite saying his parents and him suffered some form of tragedy, how is it that he sleeps in a cardboard box? Like, his home life is great, but he sleeps in a box. Because it hasn't happened yet. The tragedy where he most likely loses his parents hasn't happened as of when the game takes place, which would mean that this girl could be Gregory's sister who came back to save him when he didn't return. Or he could be lying and instead using the name of someone he knows is a missing child in the future, which is why he can't go home. Or why the therapist describes him as writing down his past as if it was a story. Because it is a story, just not his. And at 10, Client 46. The mystery of FNAF security breaches Client 46 is one that still plagues us even after the game has been torn to shreds. There's no mention of a name or any other names associated with Client 46, and whoever it is doesn't even speak. The client does appear to be younger, given the tonal shift between the therapist when they're talking to Vanessa, then talking to 46, which could be the reason that the tapes with Vanessa were included, to show that each therapist approaches 46 with a softer, kinder touch. But we know that Client 46 is most likely also a male, given that therapist 4 asks 46 what they like to do, and the first thing they talk about is sports. When being asked about encrypted communications which seem manipulative in nature, the therapist also says, quote, "Well, the texts say it looked to them like it was an attempt to manipulate you or maybe to lure you somewhere." This is the same language used when educating kids about online safety and predators. So, is this Gregory? Personally, to me, it seems like it, but if you want more of a breakdown on this, check out the Is Gregory Client 46 theory in the iCard. And at 9, security, level 9. Now, the highest security level that you can actually get access to is level 8. This just requires you to do every one of the security room minigames. However, with level 8 being the highest one that you can actually achieve, it begs the question, why are there doors with security level 10? And while that's a question for another day, my question this time around is also, why are there no security level 9 doors? Throughout the entire Pizzaplex, there are a selection of doors that we are unable to access, either because they're out of service or because they require level 10 security clearance. However, there are no doors that require level 9 security. Why is this? The simple answer is because 10 is more secure, both in an in-universe perspective as well as a gameplay standpoint. Because maybe you can somehow accidentally glitch your way to level 9 clearance. But the theory could also be that it's because in reality there is something incredibly sinister going on behind those level 10 doors. Especially if it's bad enough to hide behind 2 door levels up from your highest clearance and not just 1. And at 8, inspiration. Now, while the Pizzaplex itself may not be real, are there actually elements of this that could be? Well, actually, yes. It's been confirmed that most of the locations and structures in the Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex were actually based on places that the developers spent their childhood in. Which would mean each of these locations draws inspiration from a real place, but it's still unrealistic that a franchise like Fazbear's, having been made famous for having kids constantly go missing, would be able to end up building a whole mall complex. But also this makes me wonder, is this the plan in real life? I mean, we don't know what this game's year is supposed to be. Like, Like, I originally assumed it was 2022 because of the FNAF AR emails, but this could also be as late as like 2037 or something, thanks to FNAF 6 and the like. But could the person taking over after Scott actually be planning a real location? Probably not. I don't think that Scott would appreciate that or let it happen, but maybe Chuck E. Cheese needs some healthy competition and not seemingly a monopoly on the whole animatronic pizzeria biz. And it's 1 year later. With the DLC not releasing until 2023, the question remains of when in the timeline it will take place. Yes, it will take place after the true ending for Security Breach, but how long after the true ending is the question. See, with the state of the animatronics, it seems that it could be later on, and the release date being 2 years after the release of the original game means that it could be linear in the timeline sense, so it could also take place 2 years after the ending. But that would then bring on the question of why is Gregory back there if it's a year or two later? But then we also have to ask who is this girl and where they came from if we're really going to know this answer. So while there are theories, this one specifically coming from Amanda because of the release date, we still don't know for sure until we have some more information. Time to wait another 6 months before another teaser! And it's 6 save spots. The idea that there are various save spots around the map that allow you to save your progress is a good idea. However, this has a whole new implication for like the real life reasons these spots are around the Pizzaplex. Now, if you saved in a simple menu screen, it would be one thing, okay? The whole saving thing would just become a game feature and not canon. However, the inclusion of these save stations means that the saving is canon in the real world of the game. But how? Well, above each save point is a sign that says save your spot, which while yes refers to your spot in the game, it can also refer to something else in the Pizzaplex, and it really has to. They're probably just for making sure that you don't miss out on the various attractions. However, the real confusing part is that those are on all night, but then as soon as the Pizzaplex opens at 6 AM, they all of a sudden stop working. Why? Why are they suddenly just not working when they'd actually be needed? It makes no sense to me. Like, why keep them on all night when nobody's supposed to be in the Pizzaplex? There's something sus going on here, and it's not just Gregory venting. Halfway through, into number 5, the FNAF ARG. This was brought up in a recent MatPat FNAF theory, and people are starting to suggest that it's going to be involved in this DLC. The basic idea that the FNAF Fazbear Fright books were originally going to have an ARG that Scott ended up cutting out for whatever reason, and then released part of it in the Felix the Shark Book 12. However, I'm here to tell you guys that it's not real, okay? Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to cross the line between fact and fiction, and that he wants to keep the two worlds separate, probably because FNAF relates so closely to Chuck E. Cheese. And that's also why he wouldn't really make a real FNAF location, okay? He stuck to this so hard that he didn't even make a website for the indie game dev introduced in FNAF VR like he wanted to, because he thought that it would be too fuzzy for the line, okay? So, look. There is no FNAF ARG, okay? If a website is too much, there is no bigger quest here. Last time we thought this, there was a restaurant that got harassed, and a pizzeria owner who just so happened to be named Mike also got harassed. So please, don't go out searching. If there was an ARG, I'm sure Scott would have said something about it, okay? So don't harass anyone, just stick to the games and the game files. Crack open FNAF 3's mobile game if you want to see if there's the image there. Just leave the real world locations and people alone. And at 4, Arcade Conspiracy. The Arcade Conspiracy gets its name from one of the duffel bags that you can find where we learned something else has been going on here, and I'm gonna keep making that joke until I can't anymore. Quote from this Arcade Conspiracy note: "They are working together, the arcades. They are hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I'm so close. Just one more night. Please, I can save the princess." Now, it's clear that it seems to be referring to the Princess Quest games, however, it doesn't really seem like we have to glitch the Princess Quest games in order to win. We just have to beat them in order from 1 to 3, and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could this mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the theater, Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when unplugged, that you can find in the bakery, and Monty Golf Arcade that, according to its duffel bag, shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and the Monty Golf game, Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't an arcade cabinet. You can only access it by using a mod that lets you cheat it from the main menu, so I feel like it was an intentional feature that was left on the cutting room floor. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Prisoner. Now, time to get to some theories about our blondie in the middle. Who is she? I made it a point last time to mention that she looked an awful lot like the middle silhouette of the 9 children who ended up going missing due to Vanny, and I still stand by that point. So the most realistic answer I have is that the missing children weren't actually dead. dead, but they were rather trapped inside the building somewhere. Much like how Vanny in the very first trailer for the game said, "Gregory, your friends are here with me."
Gregory, your friends are worried about you. They're here with me. Please come out.
So clearly, Gregory must have known these children, right? Which explains why he came to the Pizzaplex in the first place, but it doesn't explain how he never mentions them. Either way, this is a very real possibility that this blonde girl is just a missing child who, thanks to the collapse of the Pizzaplex, managed to escape containment. And finally, in at number 1, the Aftons. In the best ending, the Princess Quest ending, there are quite a few confusing moments. The most confusing one for me is the idea that Gregory would go get ice cream with Vanessa when she's done trying to kill him. Like, why would you do that? Some people seem to think that it's because they're related or representing the dead Afton kids. And thanks to MatPat, there is actually a little more evidence to this. The ice cream that Vanessa gets while on the hill is very reminiscent of the ice cream cone that lured Elizabeth into Baby's arms. The cone with the tall soft serve on top looks like the cone with the tall soft serve on top that Baby presented to Elizabeth in order to lure her closer and then subsequently kill her. Is that evidence or just a coincidence? You see, I wasn't really sure, but thanks to MatPat, he pointed out that Gregory also has a popsicle. A Freddy popsicle to be exact. You know, like those SpongeBob ones that never look right, but it's Freddy Fazbear, not SpongeBob. And the lighting makes it look very yellow in color, as if it was a reference to a certain yellow bear that could have had something to do with the crying child's death. If this was truly meant to be Crying Child, this could be a good way of indicating it. But not only is it this good, it gets better. Crying Child, or I guess Gregory, has taken a bite out of the head of the popsicle. Could also be a reference to how he met his unfortunate fate. And that, combined with the other ice cream, I feel like that's pretty good.